I need an extra coffee today for this one. Okay. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Today we're talking about the worst book I read this year so far. That's right, I'm talking about The Summer We Ran by Audrey Ingram, my June Book of the Month pick. And the book that sent me into a 48-hour spiral where I was thinking and ranting and furiously writing about how much I despised this book. The Summer We Ran is a non-linear romance about two people running against each other for governor who just so happen to have a secret past. The premise sounded like a fun, nostalgic summer romance with a little bit of messy behavior, but unfortunately the execution was just messy. As of filming this book has a 3.76 average on Goodreads with 644 ratings and over 2,000 Book of the Month member reviews. 48% loved it, 40% liked it, and 10% did not like it. So clearly this is a book that landed very differently for audiences. Quick disclaimer, if you like this book, that's okay. This video is not about shaming anyone who liked this book or anyone who holds different personal beliefs than I do. If you loved this book or connected with its themes, that's great, and I am genuinely happy for you. I'm only here to break down what didn't work for me, from the plot to the pacing to some of the messaging choices that I just found confusing at best and at worst, deeply frustrating. Okay, good? Let's get into it. This book starts off seemingly normal, if anything, a little simplistic in its writing style, but that's not a big issue at all. The prologue is set in January 1997, where an 18-year-old Tess is in a hospital room recovering from an indeterminate operation with her mother. They're kind of discussing a devastating loss, and we assume that it is about a man. Fast forward to June 2021, and Tess is running for governor of Virginia against her Republican candidate, Grant Alexander. Tess and her husband Dean are at home discussing how her grueling campaign schedule is putting a strain on their marriage. But hey, who doesn't make sacrifices for love, right? During their talk, the reader learns that Tess has been hiding something from her husband Dean for over 2 decades, which she, at this time, qualifies as a few strategic omissions. We'll come back to that, because as it turns out, Tess has actually met her opponent, Grant, before, back in the summer of 1996. Tess's mom is hired to be the house manager / cook for a wealthy socialite named Miss Milton, who lives somewhere in Virginia where rich people live. That's one aspect of this book. Is I'm pretty sure no character ever has their physical appearance described, and I have no idea where we are other than in Virginia and near different bodies of water. Which is fine. I mean, whatever. That's the least of this book's issues. It's at Miss Milton's house that Tess meets Kay Alexander, who is Grant's mom. The two of them get to talking. Kay hires Tess to help her for the summer in tending to her vast gardens. And coincidentally, this is how Tess and Grant meet for the first time. But before that titillating moment, we jump back to 2021, or I guess forward. We jump forward to 2021, where we're about to have our first gubernatorial debate. Tess is so nervous that she runs into a random bathroom to puke, and lo and behold, who walks in but Grant Alexander. They have a very tense conversation about lying about their past during the election, and Tess basically wants nothing to do with him. Grant suggests that they continue to lie to protect their campaigns, but it's eating Tess alive to continue lying. Tess asks Grant to drop out of the race. He refuses. And then we move to the debate. They're discussing juvenile justice, which is a topic that clearly stirs up a lot of feelings between the two. Tess believes that we should reform this justice system, and she advocates to fix a systemic racial bias, whereas Grant basically believes once a criminal, always a criminal. Back to 1996, Tess and Grant meet at Grant's house via Kay. We find out that Grant doesn't have much of a relationship with his rich dad, Richard. Richard thinks Grant is a walking disaster and the greatest disappointment of his life. Okay. We also learn that his mom and dad don't have much of a marriage either. You know, it's all just a lot of like classic rich trust fund kid lore. Anyway, Grant invites Tess to a bonfire that's happening that night, to which she agrees. And it's at this bonfire that they discuss their dreams and how dreams in life are a lot easier for rich kids like Grant, who have never had to work hard for anything in their lives and have always had money to fall back on. Whereas Tess can barely even consider going to college in UVA because she's poor. Things get a little out of control at the bonfire. There's like people start shooting guns off, and needless to say, the cops show up. Tess and Grant evade the police and run into the woods where they share their first kiss together, and I feel absolutely nothing for them at this point. Fast forward to 2021, Tess comes home to find her husband Dean being filmed cooking for this article for her campaign about like family recipes. And later, Tess and Dean have a discussion again about how her campaign is putting a strain on their marriage. But Dean is confident that they can get through anything because he's a good husband. During this conversation, the reader finds out that Dean and Tess have always struggled with the topic of having children. Dean has always wanted children, but they got married very young and did never really discuss it before getting married, I guess. So he always wanted children, but Tess says that children just weren't part of her plan. We're definitely coming back to that. But at this point, like 2 decades later, Dean has basically given up on his desire to have kids because Tess has always refused. And we can kind of surmise here that there's more to her reasoning than she's letting on with Dean or the reader. And it's in this conversation where Tess realizes she has an opportunity to come clean to Dean about whatever this big secret is. But she decides it's not worth it because we still have a lot more of this book to get through. Anyway, Dean goes to the garage to look for a family recipe in a box of junk for the article, and we go back to 1996 where it's July now. Tess is over at Kay's house helping with the gardens, and Kay is shocked to find out that the people who were shooting off guns at the bonfire last month have been arrested and I guess basically been in jail this whole time. Apparently some boys that worked for Miss Milton had stolen guns from her and were among those that were arrested at the bonfire. And somehow they just found this out weeks later. Does she not realize that they just didn't show up to work for 3 weeks? Anyway, Tess feels bad for them, and Grant basically thinks that they deserve to be in jail. Tess tries to challenge him on this, rightfully so, because they were also at the bonfire and could have easily been arrested. And he has really nothing to say to this because, once a criminal, always a criminal, right? But instead of letting this ruin their day, Grant takes Tess to the river for a picnic. During a passionate makeout session where he tries to take her top off, Tess reveals that she is actually in fact a virgin, and Grant is not. He politely tells her that he would never rush her, that he wants to make sure that her first time is special, that it has meaning, and that they can just enjoy the river and eat lunch. Grant dumps more of his sad, rich boy dad trauma on her, and it was at this point that I realized I was probably gonna hate this book because the dialogue that rounds out their time at the river together is it's so cringe. Even for 18-year-olds, it's ridiculously cringe. I almost couldn't bear to read it, so I'm gonna read it again for you to enjoy. Tess, I care too much about you to rush this. When you're ready and there's a bed instead of a questionably dirty blanket, and I don't have to leave you to serve ice cream to whiny kids, then we will do it. I didn't know the blanket was dirty. I'm an 18-year-old boy. Do you think any of my blankets are clean? Ew, Grant, I can't believe I almost had sex with you. Dodge that bullet. Let's eat. You must be starving. I am. I love it here. It would have been such a great place to lose my virginity. Too bad. Tess, I'm using every ounce of my restraint. So you're saying you want to have sex with me, just not right now because you're trying to be a good guy? Okay, just clearing things up. Did you have a particular date in mind when you think you'll want to have sex? I will want to have sex with you every minute of every day, but I'm not going to have sex with you until you are 100% ready. Blah, blah, blah. Grant, I'm done eating. Ready for a swim? We can wear our underwear. I can even keep my back to you the entire time. Nope. Oh, are you ready to head back? I still have an hour before I have to go to town. Nope, I'm ready. Ready for what? Tess. Ready. Tess, this is a big deal. I can't sleep with you. That's fine, I get it. No big deal. Tess, I cannot wait to have sex with you. I just want it to be special. I want to make it special for you. Why? Because you say exactly what you're thinking, and the way you listen to me makes me feel like what I have to say matters. For the first time in my life, because you make me laugh with your quirky facts, because I've never seen anyone so sexy with mud streaked across her face, but because you are special to me. Tess, think you can wait for me? I can wait for you, Grant. I feel nothing for them. I feel nothing. And right after that, Grant whispers that he loves her. Basically, they've been dating for a couple weeks, and I think they both realize that it's way too soon for him to be acknowledging that, but there it is. And that's the end of that chapter. Terrible dialogue aside, one of the many frustrating narrative choices in this book is how nearly every flashback chapter ends with an ominous allusion to some future tragedy that Tess and Grant are going to experience together. And it's meant to create suspense, but by the time we finally get to the big reveal, it doesn't even carry the emotional weight that it should. Not because the event in and of itself is not significant, but because we've been hit over the head with the anticipation for so long that it feels hollow. The story relies way too heavily on these vague, dramatic like hints instead of just letting the characters and like their emotional arcs build tension naturally. It says right after he says, "I love you," "In that moment, I knew I'd do anything he wanted, and that summer I did, until he asked too much and it destroyed us both." And this is just one of many chapters that ends very similarly to that. Fast forward to July 2021, and Tess is talking to her campaign manager, Mara, when Mara receives an anonymous email and demands that Tess explain herself, because what's in this email that was sent to her is an old photo of Grant and Tess in 1996, lovingly staring into each other's eyes and arm in arm. And this is the perfect opportunity for Tess to come clean to her campaign manager and explain the nature of her relationship with Grant, right? But does she? Absolutely not. She literally tells Mara to leave her campaign if that's what she wants, but she won't say anything other than they met, you know, in the summer of 1996 and that she worked for his mom. It's also in this conversation that she reveals to Mara that not even her husband knows this information. As if that like makes it better that she's also hiding it from her campaign manager and her husband. This is where I officially started the Tess Hate Club, because like you guys know, I can't do the miscommunication trope. It will never ever work for me. As an extremely honest person, I would never find myself in these situations, ever. Like, I can't imagine there are people out in the world walking around on this earth who would do stuff like this. I'm starting to get riled up and we're not even at Act 2 yet. I just don't get why she's straight up lying to her campaign manager and being like purposefully evasive. Whatever. Tess then has a moment of clarity where she decides that she must immediately pick up the phone and call the man who is most important to her in this whole situation. So she picks up the phone and calls Grant. Back in 96, Grant is dumping more sad rich boy problems on Tess before he goes to work. Tess then hears Grant's mom and dad having an argument, and she decides to eavesdrop on them. Kay seems to implicate Richard in an affair, but it's not explicitly stated, to which he replies by gaslighting her and then straight up choking her. Tess then confronts Kay, and Kay tells her to forget what she saw. Kay asks Tess whether Grant loves her, to which she replies yes. Kay then asks Tess if she loves Grant, to which she says yes, but that she hasn't told him she loves him yet. And Kay's response is one of my favorite lines in this book. This grown woman, whose son loves this 18-year-old girl, tells her, "Smart. It gives you the upper hand. You need to control the situation." I'm sorry? What? Like, we're resorting to emotionally manipulating teenagers now? Like, I can't. At this point, I'm like really losing the plot. Like, she's not even the bad parent. Like, she clearly has a connection with her son. I mean, she loves him. They have a deep emotional connection. And she's telling his girlfriend to manipulate him, basically. Like, what? I don't get it. We're now back in 2021 and we're in Grant's perspective now, unfortunately, which is the biggest literary mistake in this book, in my opinion, but I'll talk about that later. Tess has called Grant to tell him about the leaked photo, and they decide to meet later to discuss it because, you know, why would they discuss this over the phone? Then we witness a tense conversation between Grant and his wife, Cecilia, where they're basically sowing the seeds of unhappy marriage, like they're gonna get divorced. Like, that's another huge issue with this book, is that the characters of their significant others are just like pieces of paper. They're so flat. They have no dimension to them whatsoever. Side note, the way that all of these over 40 adults are speaking to each other in the present chapters, it's like a soap opera. Like, again, no one is having a meaningful conversation, like, ever. It's just ridiculous. I can't. Back in 1996, Grant invites Tess to a grown-up party that his parents are attending, and he wants to sneak in with her. They once again talk about how sad Grant's family life is, and how his mom is probably depressed. It's around this point that I realized that one of my biggest book icks was happening. Tess and Grant never stop addressing each other by their names. And I know that that might sound like a small or like petty thing, but it's so glaringly obvious in this book that and deeply annoying that I could not ignore it. People just don't talk like this, like, especially not teenagers. In real conversations, you know, we rarely say each other's names unless we're trying to, like, you know, get somebody's attention, or like, you know, if you want to emphasize something emotional, like you're having a moment, or like being super formal, I don't know. But here it's constant, and it makes their dialogue feel so unnatural. Like, it makes every interaction between them sound super like stiff and like overly scripted. It just feels like lazy writing to me. And because I have nothing better to do, apparently, I actually went through the entire book and counted. I counted. Tess uses Grant's name 91 times, and Grant uses Tess's name 93 times. That's 184 times. And I didn't even include them saying each other's name, like, to get their attention, because that's totally normal. I also counted how many conversations that they have across the entire book, and that's 19. And that includes like 2 half-page phone calls just to like tell the other person to meet them somewhere. This means that over those 19 conversations, they say each other's names nearly 10 times per conversation. That is not chemistry. That is just lazy writing. Like, this repetition, I feel like actually undermines any kind of emotional intimacy that they have. And because I really have nothing better to do, I'm going to demonstrate right now before I regret it. Tess, are you in there? Grant, what are you doing here? I don't want anything from you, Tess. I never have. No, Grant, you no longer have the right to make any judgments about what I do or don't say. 5 minutes, Tess. That's all I'm asking. Grant, let me leave. And what exactly is that, Grant? Tess, someone from your team is going to come in any minute now. I know you're used to getting away with things, Grant, but I live in the real world. It's been a long time, Grant. I'm sorry you were alone, Tess. I loved you too, Grant. I'm not dropping out, Tess. Let's just be clear, Grant. Understood, Tess. But we are strangers, Grant. Tess, you should let yourself dream. What's your dream school, Tess? I'll keep you safe, Tess. I promise. I will definitely see you around. Tess Murphy. Grant. Tess. Grant. Threats are not the way to get a girl naked. Grant. Tess. Grant. Tess. I cannot sit here and read this whole book. Oh my gosh. You're on my list, Tess. That's all that matters. Grant. Tess. Grant. Tess. Tess. God, this is torture. Why am I doing this? Grant. Tess. Tess. I'm Tess and you're Grant. And there's God. Grant. Tess. Grant. Sadness Sunday. The Tess is Likeable Club. I'm sorry, Grant. We were stupid, Tess. No offense, Grant. Tess. Grant. This is so ridiculous. Struggle isn't only financial, Tess. What are you saying, Tess? Grant. Tess. 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 Grant. I feel sick. Tess. Grant. 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 Tess. I love you, Grant. Oh. That was a mistake. I hope you enjoyed that.
Hot honey.
Pepperoni.
We have hot honey already. So
Yeah.
regular pepperoni.
Yeah, and some bell pepper. I feel sick. Moving on. After Tess tells Grant she's fried chicken and he's lobster, he says he loves her because he needs more fried chicken in his life. They continue to drone on about their incompatibility as poor and rich people, and then they go up to Tess's room where Tess tells Grant she's ready. Like, ready. In August of 2021, Tess and Grant meet up so that Tess can show him the leaked photo. Tess explains that Grant's mom is actually the one who took the photo, and she gave Tess a copy, and Tess thought that she threw it away like 25 years ago. Then they try to deduce who could have found this photo. Tess thinks it's Richard, but Grant doesn't believe that his dad would anonymously blackmail anyone because his blackmail is usually much more straightforward. They decide to devise a plan, which is to do exactly what they've been doing this whole time and continue to keep quiet and lie to the people closest to them. And then they end the scene by vaguely reminiscing on their past for no apparent reason. Anywho, it's August of 1996 now, and Grant is getting ready to leave for Princeton and talking to Kay about how much he'll miss her. Kay says it's not the child's job to worry about the parent, when she was literally just dumping her emotional baggage on her son like 4 chapters ago. Then he goes to find Tess, and they discuss when she's going to start her senior year of high school. They discuss how they're going to try to stay in touch while he's gone. And Tess finally tells Grant she loves him, but like barely. She's constantly hedging the future of their relationship because he's a rich boy and the real world hasn't settled in on their relationship yet. Fast forward to September of 2021, and Grant is thinking back to a conversation he and his wife Celia had about divorce, and that's pretty much it. It's just they're probably gonna get a divorce. Grant then sits down with his campaign manager, Stuart, and during their conversation, Stuart says one of the stupidest phrases I have read, maybe to date. He says, "We are down 6 points. Tess Murphy is the likable Teflon, and I hate losing. We are adjusting our strategy." I'm sorry, what? Like, what does that even mean? Likable Teflon? This book just came out, and we have all seen Dark Waters at this point. Like, what does that mean? It's 2025. We all hate Teflon now. Like, what do you mean? Stewart decides they need to go negative and start doing recon on Tess. Grant understandably refuses and is very concerned about this. But Stewart decides to just do it anyway because, fuck personal boundaries, right? Grant then has to reveal to Stewart that he did know Tess in the past, and here would be yet another great opportunity for someone to come clean to their campaign manager and be honest about their past. But no. Oh, and also, his wife Cecilia just happens to be conveniently listening in on this conversation. Now, Grant definitely has some explaining to do, right? Back in 1996, and I'm sorry, I'm getting delirious at this point. Imagine how I felt reading this book. It's officially the day for Grant to leave for Princeton. He goes to say goodbye to his mom, who is in the bathtub and unresponsive. Grant mistakes her for just being hungover. Then he realizes that his mother isn't just unconscious. She's dead. He calls Richard for help, accuses him of killing his mother, to which Richard just replies that she was sick and implies that she committed suicide. Also, this isn't even mentioned in the Book of the Month trigger warnings, just, by the way. Grant and Richard get into a heated conversation in front of Tess and the sheriff, where more blame gets passed around. We basically learn that Kay had taken an entire bottle of sleeping pills and downed it with a bottle of wine the night before she was about to leave with her son to go to Princeton. This is just not adding up for me. The sheriff agrees to keep this confidential, and Richard then goes on to basically blame his 18-year-old son for his mother's death, saying that Grant's lack of worth caused her to do this. He basically says, she decided to spend the summer with you here in the hopes that you would, become a better person, but you didn't, so now she's killed herself. More emotional manipulation of a grieving child? I don't care how bad Richard is. What? Why? A few days later, Tess and Grant are once again talking about their future, and we find out that, dun 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 dun, Tess is pregnant. No. Despite their regular use of condoms, Tess managed to get pregnant the very first time they had sex when she lost her virginity because Grant didn't use protection that one time. I'm sorry. Grant continually voiced his support for her and wanted to make sure that her first time was special, wanted to be respectful, and make sure that she was 100% ready. And then he proceeded to have unprotected sex with her, and we're supposed to be rooting for this guy? Y'all, and it only gets worse from here. Tess is freaking out because the future obviously now is very uncertain and they can't afford to have a baby. Grant is trying to be supportive, but Tess basically indicates that she has a choice in what to do here, and she does not want to end up like her mother, who struggled for her entire life and tried to raise a baby through all of that. Tess says here that she thinks that she should have an abortion, and this is where the book really starts to go off the rails, y'all. Grant doesn't want her to rush into this decision because he loves her and they can figure it out together. And would you look at that, none other than freaking Richard is conveniently eavesdropping on this conversation at the edge of the garden. He's like a Lifetime villain. I'm so tired. We're getting there, I promise. Please stay with me. Jump forward to 2021. Grant shows up at Tess's hotel room to tell her that his wife and his campaign team know about their past, except they don't actually really know about their past. We flash back to this conversation that he had with Cecilia where she barely asks anything. She's just like, so she only worked for your mother one summer, right? And he's like, yeah, right, you're so right. He just assumes that she doesn't want the truth because she didn't ask any sort of leading question, and so he doesn't give her the truth. And that means that it's cool that he's absolved of this guilt, and we're expected to accept this as character depth. I cannot. There has never been a more miscommunication trope filled book ever. I'm suffering at this point. Back in her hotel room, Grant and Tess discussed the night's debate. The hot topic was, you guessed it, abortion. When asked about their views on this topic, Tess said all of the expected things about a woman's right to choose. And then we get Grant's full response, which I'm going to read. I guess I never understood how my opponent could say abortion is a woman's choice. My wife chooses our dinners, our vacation plans, and most of my outfits. Abortion shouldn't be a choice like dinner, and certainly not something as simple as saying it's a woman's choice. Being a father is the greatest privilege of my life. I can only imagine what it would look like if my partner made a choice that took that gift away. Tess was quick with her rebuttal, pointing out the burdens unique to women, financial, medical, interpersonal, that childbirth brings. The last thing that she said at the debate keeps echoing in my mind. We have to trust women, Tess had said. Except I did. I had trusted Tess, which made her betrayal unbearable. This is one of my major issues with this book, specifically regarding the plot structure. If this book is meant to be pro-choice, which I don't even know at this point if it is, it's riding the line so hard that I really couldn't honestly tell you if it is or is not. I thought it was at first, but the more that I have analyzed this book, I don't even know. But if it is meant to be pro-choice, why on earth do we get this scene from Grant's perspective? It felt like the author was being lazy just by writing that Tess said all of the expected things about a woman's right to choose. What did she say? Why don't we get the fully developed argument from Tess on this when we get the fully developed argument from Grant? And like, we just get this lazy sentence. This is where I really started to feel unsure about what side we were on here in this book, and that's where I kind of start to have some issues. I am unequivocally in support of a woman's right to choose what she does with her body, and I want to be clear because I know this is a hot button topic. I do not shame anyone who shares the opposite opinion of me. I really started to have an issue with the structure of the plot in this book in regards to this narrative. This book has handed the emotional spotlight to Grant, let him spout his pro-life rhetoric, and then rewarded him with a political platform. This is just the tipping point. I'll come back to this later. Back in Tess's hotel room, but we shouldn't be because there's literally no reason that he's here. They have nothing to talk about other than rehashing the past for the 14,000th time. Like, we get it. You have history together, but like barely. You have 3 months of history together 25 years ago. Come on, like, you people are grown-ass adults. Like, grow up. As Grant is leaving her hotel room, Cecilia ambushes him because she's followed him and is now accusing him of having an affair with Tess. I'm sorry, didn't she literally just indicate not 3 pages ago that she didn't want to know anything about their relationship? Why did she suddenly do a 180 and turn into a stalker? And what follows is like just such an insufferable conversation between two adults who, by the way, have been married for like 12 years. Grant's side of the argument is this: we have a connection. Even after all these years, it's hard to explain. I've known Tess since I was 18. We haven't seen each other since that summer. What Tess and I had wasn't a summer fling. It was real. My feelings for Tess are complicated. I hate Tess, but I also need her in my life. She was never just some girlfriend. There are things about my life that only Tess understands. I'm sorry, but being trauma bonded with someone you knew for 3 months at 18 years old is not even in the top 50 reasons why I would consider lying to and gaslighting my wife of 12 years, who has also given me 2 children. Like, be so for real. This conversation continues and Cece compares Grant to his father, which Grant resents but can't exactly explain why, until he reveals to her one of the many reasons that he actually hates his father, which is that Richard was responsible for the death of his mom however many years ago. Because I guess this whole time he had been telling her that it was an accident, that she had fallen and hit her head, but he actually tells her that she committed suicide. So this whole time, their whole marriage, Grant had been dishonest with her about his mother's death. They talk some more and Cece rightfully says that she can't love someone that she doesn't know. And Grant realized that actually, yeah, he basically is his father. And now he's alone because his wife is most assuredly going to divorce him now. But not until their children are older, which, whatever. I honestly would have loved for the book to just end here with Grant being a big old loser. But no, we have to get to the point where Grant somehow redeems himself enough to become likable, since it seems like he might be the main, male love interest in this book, right? Flashback to 1996 again. Grant says he's not going to Princeton anymore. He's going to go to UVA so that he and Tess can be together and raise this child. And Tess again explains that she cannot raise a baby and that she has made an appointment at a clinic to terminate her pregnancy. Grant straight up says, "I don't respect your choice," and begs her to change her mind. Then when she asks him just to politely consider her perspective in all this, he says one of the most repulsive lines of this book: "If you decide to kill our baby, how can I ever trust you, Tess?" I'm sorry. What? Grant saying this and not being meaningfully challenged by the narrative or Tess at all suggests that this book is either tone deaf to its own messaging or it truly is not a pro-choice book. Again, I feel like she's just trying to appeal to both sides of this debate and it ends up extremely muddled. Oh, and by the way, this is not the last time that you'll hear him say this phrase. And this is the main male love interest. This is where I continue my frustration with this section being written from Grant's perspective. Switching to his perspective during what should be Tess's most intimate, emotional, and identity shaping experience, clearly because it affects her for the rest of her life up until the present. Tess is finding out that she's pregnant and deciding to have an abortion. It's not just a strange choice. I feel like it's a deliberate choice to change to his perspective. And it robs her of her agency. She's being silenced and it reinforces the idea that the abortion was more about his loss than her actual choice. So I'm just so confused about what this book is trying to say about it. The more I think about it, the more I feel like it's not pro-choice at all, actually. But this author hasn't actually said anything on the record about the topic, and abortion is not even a listed trigger warning for the book, again, on Book of the Month. So I'm just confused about this whole everything. It was at this point I genuinely just had no interest in finishing this book. I only pushed through because I wanted to share my full thoughts with you guys. And again, I know I'm beating a dead horse, but this is not about shaming anybody who holds different beliefs than I do, even if the author is one of those people. My frustration lies in the way that this book is written and marketed. It's posed as like this nostalgic summer romance, when in reality, it's an emotionally heavy, politically charged story that explores deeply sensitive and polarizing topics like abortion. Like, this is not what I signed up to read. Not at all. Like, the cover of this book does not indicate anything like that going on. This looks like a beautiful, wonderful, peaceful place. And that is just, yeah. After all this, Tess, who just a little bit ago was hedging her relationship with Grant and basically encouraging him to explore the possibility of a life without her, is now saying that she still loves him and will be waiting for him if he ever chooses to respect her decision. Who is this person? I do not know her. Tess leaves and Grant runs into Richard. After talking with him for 2 seconds, Grant realizes that actually he's lost without Tess and decides that he's actually willing to be with her and accept her abortion just so that he's not alone now that his mom is gone. But then Richard reveals to him that he paid Tess to follow through with her abortion, $50,000. And Grant realizes that Tess has betrayed him and he is disgusted by both her and his father. And now he really is truly alone. Honestly, at this point, I have so many issues that I'm just gonna try to get through as fast as I can. We are now moving to October of 2021 and back to Tess's perspective. She's talking to her campaign manager, Mara, who tells her that they never received the recipe that Dean was supposed to submit for the article that we learned about forever ago. Tess goes home to ask Dean about this, and it's here that we learn that Dean did in fact find the recipe. And alongside it, he also found the photo of Tess and Grant hugging, the one that was sent to her campaign manager. Tess asks him why he did that. And his argument for this is that, once he found the picture, he asked Tess every day how she felt about her running mate. What do you think of Grant? How do you feel about Grant? And in doing this, he was giving her dozens of chances to explain the nature of her relationship with Grant, but she didn't. So instead of sitting down face to face with his wife of 2 decades to have a rational conversation about this photo and ask her about it, he decides to anonymously email this picture to her campaign manager. Are these people 12 years old? Why is this author trying to make me hate Dean? This is the stupidest thing that an emotionally mature adult would do. I was dumbfounded by this. And yet, this still is not the worst part of this conversation. After some coaxing, Tess explains that Grant was in fact her first love and that she still loves him, but it's okay because she loves Dean more, right? Dean continues to try to get information out of her and ask her to just tell him the truth, and she continues to lie and skirt around her past to him. Even after all this, this is the time. Right here is the time where you have to be honest. Let's just get it all out in the open. She is still lying to her husband. At which point, Dean confronts her and says, well, you're still really not being honest with me. And he shows her yet another picture that he found alongside the first photo. And guess what? It's an ultrasound of a baby. Uh-oh. Her husband, who has given up wanting to have kids after almost 2 decades of being shot down by Tess because kids just weren't in her plan, is now being confronted with the fact that at one time in her life she was pregnant and she refuses to explain herself still. Guys, we aren't even still at the worst part of all this. It's at this point you're thinking, okay, surely now she'll explain everything, right? Does she do that? Fuck no, she doesn't. She tells him that she needs to tell Grant first before Dean, because Grant deserves to know. Because this story involves Grant. At this point, I genuinely wanted to throw the book in the garbage. I wanted it to light on fire. Understandably, Dean walks out on Tess, and she basically just accepts that this means their marriage is over. After being married for almost 25 years, there's no reconciling this. And she never explains herself to Dean. They just part ways. Back to 1996, and I don't even care anymore at this point, so lightning round. Richard manipulates Miss Milton into firing Tess's mom. Richard then offers the $50K to Tess to take care of her problem, and it's this way that Tess's mom finds out that her daughter is pregnant. Back in 2021, Grant literally runs into Tess on the street and asks her to get in his car. He takes her to his childhood home, where neither have have been since that summer of 1996. Tess just blurts out that Dean left her. They go inside and Grant looks for his mom's camera bag. I guess he's like, I don't even know why they're doing this. I think he wants to like try to process, all of his childhood trauma, and he's brought, his trauma buddy along with him. But there's really no explanation. Tess finds some hidden photographs that Kay had taken of Richard kissing Miss Milton. So it's in this moment that Grant realizes actually it wasn't his fault that his mom committed suicide. It was actually his father's affair that drove her to do it. Back in 1996, Tess's mom is trying to convince her not to take the money or get the abortion. She then reveals to Tess that Tess is, believe it or not, one of 2 people in their family who got pregnant after freshly turning 18 because her mom had a one-night stand with someone she delivered room service to who literally ghosted her the next day. We're now, unfortunately, back in 2021. Grant finally confronts Tess about taking the $50,000 from Richard to have the abortion. He says, "Why would I trust you? You took a bribe and killed my baby." Tess's lack of a response to him for constantly berating her for her choice to have an abortion is just like sickening to me. Like, I don't even know who she is at this point. What's also funny is that this portion of the book is where we switch back to Tess's perspective. This would have been the ideal place to switch to Grant's perspective if that's what this author wanted to do. Like, although I personally don't feel like we needed it at all, but in this section he has this big emotional reckoning about his past and his masculinity and dealing with this grief. And this could have been an actually effective and like earned use of his perspective, especially if it shows sort of like a growth or shift in his understanding. Like, we need that at this point. We are grasping at straws. We have crumbs. We're getting crumbs from this man. We need this so badly. And this is like really the heart of the structural problem in this book. This perspective choice is completely backwards from both a storytelling and a thematic standpoint. While Grant is waxing poetic about the beautiful life they could have given this baby girl, Tess corrects him and says, actually, it's a boy. And it's here on page 275 of this dumpster fire of a book that Tess finally reveals that she did not, in fact, have an abortion. Bruh. I don't even know what to say at this point. Tess explains that the reason she never told Grant about this is because he never asked. She waited for him. She told him, I'll wait for you if you can accept that I'm making this choice, but then decided not to make that choice, but then still was like waiting for him to come back for her. But he never came. So she moved on and decided to never tell him that she had his baby. And Grant, understandably freaking out, asks her if they have a child together, to which she replies, Grant, I'm not ready for this conversation. What? We have truly lost the plot now. Like, the plot is in space, but eventually this book has to end at some point. So Tess actually decides, yeah, I should just, tell him everything after all now. I mean, we're already here. There's no point for any emotional suspense anymore. We live through the story back in 1996 for the last time, but not thankfully, because Tess is at a mandatory ultrasound before she can have her abortion, and after hearing the baby's heartbeat, decides that she can't do it. Like, that's not storytelling. That is just emotional coercion that is supposed to be posing as character development. But the kicker is that she decides to give the baby up for adoption instead. That's the cherry on top of this manipulative sundae. The fact that Tess is now against having an abortion, but still doesn't want to raise this child, shows that her intent has not changed, only that she has been guilted into a different course of action. And that's where I really was left like super confused about the messaging here. Like, what exactly is this book trying to say? Is it attempting to walk the line to try to appeal to both pro-choice and pro-life readers in order to avoid alienating anyone? If that's the case, why include this storyline at all? Why not just say what you feel and then stand on your shit? Why make it like this weird gray area? And I was reading the Goodreads reviews and there were people from both sides that were pissed off. So clearly this book appealed to everyone and also alienated everybody at the same time. When a book takes on a topic that is this complex and polarizing, it should have something meaningful or intentional to say. She shouldn't be playing it safe under the guise of neutrality. Again, then it's like, what is the point of writing about it? Like, this is the main thing that happens. I'm sick. Back in 2021, for the final time, and Tess tells Grant everything. Well, almost everything. Now that Grant realizes Tess didn't have the abortion and only took the money to pull one over on Richard, he suddenly, magically doesn't hate her anymore. And when Tess realizes that the only reason Grant didn't come after her is because he thought she was a deplorable person for taking her father's money and having an abortion, she suddenly doesn't hate him anymore. They actually suddenly love each other again. They actually never stopped loving each other and actually have just been lying to themselves and their significant others for like over 2 decades. This is love, right, guys? Oh, and then Grant delivers another, like, heart-swooning, beautifully written romantic line when discussing her presumed adoption. He says, "I know this was never a real person to you. It was something you could end or give away. But to me, this is my child, and I want to know him." But sorry, Grant, there's one more plot twist we have yet to reveal. Let's see what's behind door number 3. Tess reveals that she was almost 7 months pregnant when she started bleeding uncontrollably and was rushed to the hospital. Remember the prologue when she was recovering from something that we don't know about? Well, it was an emergency C-section, and unfortunately her baby was stillborn. After having made a seemingly firm decision to have an abortion, then to get manipulated to not go through with it, and then the baby ends up stillborn anyway. This conveniently, I feel like, spares the book of having to actually deal with the reality or the aftermath of abortion. Like, this is the final nail in this landmine of a plot. It spares the characters and the author from having to deal with the emotional complexity of either of the outcomes, whether it be her actually having the abortion or giving up the child for adoption. It lets everybody feel sad, but still, like, morally redeemed because she did the right thing, but, you know, then tragedy struck. Not only this, but because she was hemorrhaging, they had to perform an involuntary hysterectomy on her. I have no words. Unimaginable trauma aside, does everyone remember Dean, Tess's husband? Let me just remind you all that she has hid this information from her husband of almost 25 years. Her and Dean had discussed having children multiple times, countless times over 2 decades, and all she ever told him was that kids weren't a part of her plan. Meanwhile, she was never even able to have them. What the fuck? What the actual fuck? This is not just, in my opinion, like an oversight. This is a massive emotional betrayal. And this book treats it like it's just like a footnote of a plot point. Like, this is the worst part of this whole book to me. She lied to her husband of 25 years about being sterile, who always wanted kids, and never told him why. I was seething after I read this. I was so mad. I'm still so mad. It's astonishing to me. Like, it's dumbfounding to me that this author doesn't seem to realize how cruel this act of betrayal makes Tess look. Or also, like, how deeply it undermines the integrity of her marriage. Her entire marriage is a sham at this point. And it's about to get worse because Tess explains that the reason she continually perpetrated this lie to her husband in all their years of marriage is because Dean never once wondered about the absence of tampons in the house or any sex scheduling around cycles. That's the emotional depth that this book is working with. Not grief, not growth, just gaslighting dressed up as, he didn't ask, so I didn't tell. Instead of facing the fallout of infertility or even their broken trust in this long-term marriage of theirs, or even just allowing Tess and Dean to have like an actual adult conversation about like her grief and sacrifice, the book chooses to blame Dean for not being suspicious about tampons. What's worse is that she goes on to speak about her general experience, you know, being in the public eye, and she says that most people assume I'm focused on my career. They don't know I never had a choice. What are you talking about? This could have massively helped her campaign when speaking on topics like abortion. She could have used her story to highlight how complex and painful and deeply personal that reproductive decisions are, but it spends the entirety of its page count doing everything that it can to obscure, punish, or like shame that choice. This book does not want to have a conversation. It wants credit for standing near the conversation on the sidelines and then just like slipping away quietly when it gets uncomfortable. Okay, back to Tess and Grant and oh, what? Oh, great. They're making out. Anyways, Tess and Grant meet up again for some reason and explain that their marriages are basically over, even though they're not. Like, they are still both very much married to another person, at least until their political campaigns are over, and they want to be together, but Tess insists on suffering because they have a lot of growth to do. This is where she finally puts her big girl pants on, I guess, and sets a boundary. I don't know. So they can't be together for now, you know, after all this. I'm so tired. I want to die. Even as I'm typing up the script, I want to die. Tess wins the election, by the way. God help the state of Virginia. And we end with Tess imagining her and Grant's life one day in the future where they're together. That's right. These two morally fucked up people are endgame, baby. So, what we've learned is that this book is telling you to silence your pain, lie to your spouse, repress your trauma, and eventually, if you play your cards right, you'll get to be with your high school sweetheart turned political rival who once compared your presumed abortion to murder. Can't think of anything better than that. So yeah, that's the book. That's the summer we ran. I read it, I regretted it, I spiraled, and now here we are, like 2 hours later. If you liked this video, please hit the like button. And if you want more chaotic commentary or reviews or emotional breakdowns marketed to you as analysis, consider subscribing. Leave a comment below if you've read this one. Like, I need to know if anyone did actually read this. I just feel crazy. I feel like Charlie from It's Always Sunny trying to put all of this together. This is going to be a nightmare to edit. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day or night, whatever it is that you're doing. And yeah, that's it. See you later. Bye.